Welcome everyone to today's session. Today we are going to talk about Azure, right? It's a pretty basic introductory session on Azure. I'm going to talk about especially compute fundamentals on Azure, right? Before starting with compute fundamentals, I will talk about cloud basics. I'm sure many of you are already working in cloud environment, but many of you are not, right? So I'm going to have a little bit of introduction on basics of cloud, what is cloud and what's different between on-premise infrastructure and cloud infrastructure. And then we are going to get into compute fundamentals. In compute fundamentals, we are going to talk about the structure or the spread of Azure. So we are going to talk about regions, availability zones, right? So we are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about some sovereign regions. Then we are going to talk about virtual machines, right? So we are going to talk about virtual machines. Then we are going to talk about scalability of virtual machines and availability of virtual machines. Okay, my audio is low. Just give me a second. Is my audio low for everyone? Everybody says it's fine for them. So if some people have some issues, please check your setup. Thank you so much. Okay, now about myself. My name is Amit, and I have based out of Bangalore, which is in India, if you guys didn't know. And I have around 18 years of experience, mostly on DevOps technologies. Hey, am I not sharing my screen? Sorry about that. Such an oversight. I'm really sorry. Can you see my screen now? All right, glad we could figure out in time. Yeah. Okay, let me repeat myself. Today we are here to talk about Azure Compute Fundamentals. And before talking about compute fundamentals, we are also going to talk a little bit about basics of cloud. Yeah, so what is cloud and how it is different from on-premise. We will talk about regions, availability zones, sovereign regions, and things like that. Then we'll talk about compute, and then we'll talk about virtual machines in the compute. We will create virtual machine, for an example, and then we will see how do we achieve scalability and availability of virtual machines, right? So it's just a high-level introductory session to you so that you can know what is cloud and how it works. Okay, and I was introducing myself before we realized that my screen was not visible. So my name is Amit. I'm out of Bangalore, India, 18 years of experience, mostly on DevOps technologies. Okay, and let's start, right? So first, let's talk about infrastructure. What is infrastructure, right? And infrastructure in terms of IT, not like flyovers and railway tracks and things like that. Not that infrastructure. That's the public infrastructure. In terms of IT, what do we mean by infrastructure? We mean all the compute resources required by your development team or your engineering team to build a product which your organization can ship, right? So if there are 10 developers working in an organization, they need computers, they need servers, they need network, they need storage, and various other services so that they can actually do the engineering that they are hired for and deliver the product, right? So for that, we require infrastructure, and generally it's called IT. It is also known as IT, infrastructure technology. Yeah. Okay. So in the infrastructure, what do you have? You have servers, you have storage, you have networks, right? You may have softwares as well. For example, Windows licenses or storage licenses, things like that. So these are, some major components of the infrastructure. And there are a couple of ways, at least, using which you can obtain the infrastructure, right? The first way of obtaining an infrastructure is by setting up your own. So if an organization wants to develop some, some software product, they can set up their own infrastructure, right? So they can buy a big data center or a big building, yeah, and they can put all their servers and storage devices, let's say. There could be multiple storage devices. There could be multiple servers. So organizations will buy the hardware and then put it at one location, then set up their own networking, right? Their own firewall, their own configurations, and also physically secure this building. Such a setup is called as a data center, right? And this is a private data center. This is a private data center owned by a particular organization. They invest a lot on buying the servers and setting everything up. And they also invest a lot on keeping everything running, right? So when you set up a private data center, the organizations spend on capital expenditure and operational expenditure. CapEx is the initial investment. You have to buy servers, you have to buy storage, you have to buy cables, you have to buy power, not power, but you have to buy, let's say, generator, you have to buy UPS. So all that comes in capital expenditure, which is not a recurring expenditure. Then the data center teams also spend money on operational expenditure, right? For example, their utility bills. So electricity, cooling, and water or whatever. Then salary, they have to pay money to actually people who can keep this up and running, and it can get very, very expensive. So they have to pay salaries. They have to pay for security, and they want to keep this entire infrastructure secure. So this is how you can set up a private data center. Now, as you can see, it can get pretty expensive. If you are a small organization, let's say you have 10 people and you just need 5 servers and maybe 5 terabytes of storage and things like that, would you really invest in a private data center? You can have co-located data center, but again, that's also pretty expensive. So what you can do is you can use somebody else's help to set up your own data center or infrastructure. That's where public cloud comes in. Okay, so public clouds like Azure, like AWS, like Google Cloud, and many others, what they do is they set up large-scale data centers across the world, and they allow you or any customer to use their data center for their infrastructure purposes. Okay, so let's say Azure has set up this data center somewhere in the world, and they set up their own servers. They will buy the servers, they will buy the licenses, they will buy the storage devices. They will hire people to manage all this. As a customer, I don't need to worry about all these things. What I need is access to the data center so that I can get the infrastructure. How do we do it? How do we do it? It's not customer's problem. Azure or AWS or whoever else has to provide you a way to get the infrastructure securely and also with high data reliability and high security without worrying about setting everything up. So if today evening I need 5 servers with a specific configuration, I should be able to get them just by connecting to Azure services. Yeah. So that's what public cloud does. It takes away majorly this capex part where you spend a lot on initial investment and also just leaves you with an operational expenditure, but not in terms of these bills, but they want you to pay just an upfront amount, like, if you want to use one server, pay us $1 an hour, and we will take care of all the OPEX and CAPEX, right? So it makes life easy. In the long run, it may or may not turn out to be more expensive than private data center. It's all about scale and usability and what you do with your infrastructure. So it's all about that. But yeah, it can be cheaper, it can be expensive. It all depends on the setup. We cannot discuss about that, but you don't have to actually spend a lot on the initial investment, right? You just have to worry about operational expenditure. Okay, so that's what cloud is. Yeah, and a public cloud is a shared infrastructure. So if somebody sets up a cloud, like Azure sets up a cloud in India or infrastructure in India, it's not just for me, it's for anyone. It's for Shweta, it's for Priyanka, it's for Tunga Harini, it's for Sanjay, anyone. It's for, I mean, Amazon can use it, Flipkart can use it, Google can use it, Microsoft can use it, anybody can use it, right? It's just pay and use service. Okay, so I'm going to show you today. Today we are going to talk about how this infrastructure is set up and how you can quickly get a virtual machine, and maybe some strategies around how you can quickly set up your application with scalability and reliability. A very high level, not a standard industry practice of setting up application, but industry practice for setting up infrastructures or virtual machines. Okay. So when we talk about Azure, Azure actually has data centers across the world, right? So if I say Azure region map, yeah, something like this. Yeah. Okay, so maybe you guys can see, maybe you guys cannot. It gets pretty blurred here. Let me see if I can find a better diagram. Maybe we don't need to see all the details here. So you can see here, this is the map of the world. And you can see these blue dots here, right? Blue dots means that Azure has some data center presence there, right? The blue dots are called as region. Okay, a region is nothing but a place where Azure is setting up infrastructure which can be accessed by customers. For example, you can see West India is a place where they have a data center or a region. South India is a region, right? Then they have a region in South Africa. They have a region in Australia East, Australia Southwest, a lot of regions in US itself, right? Then they have within the regions, So what is a region? Region is a place where you can connect to and get your infrastructure needs fulfilled, right? Now, what happens is, let's say, let me come back to my diagram here. Let's say you want a virtual machine, right? So Amit wants a virtual machine. So what they do is they contact to Azure region. Let's say I connect to the Mumbai region. And I connect to the Mumbai region and I set up one machine here and I start using it, right? Now, what happens if a natural calamity comes and the data center in which this machine is set up is, flooded, or maybe there's a terrorist attack and it's all wiped out or whatever. So some act of God, then my infrastructure is gone, right? I am just left running high and dry without my infrastructure. So how Azure solves this problem is, Azure says that even though we are present in Mumbai, we will set up multiple data centers in Mumbai. Okay, so when you get a infrastructure, you can get a virtual machine here, or a virtual machine here, or a virtual machine here. And these are physically disjoint, so physically distant. These are not co-located. So maybe they are around 100 kilometers apart, right? Or maybe they are 30 kilometers apart. I don't remember the number exactly. So even if this data center goes down, there are other data centers available to serve your infrastructure needs. And such entities are called availability zones, short AZ, right? Availability zones, right? And one region mostly has 3 availability zones. Okay, some regions may have 2, not 3. Some regions may only have 1 availability zone. Maybe it's a new region and Azure is just starting out there. So it depends on region to region, but mostly the standard is they will have 3 availability zones, right? So when you set up an virtual machine, you can set up in a way that if this is struck with a disaster and this data center is gone, a replacement virtual machine is created here, which you can access. Yeah, so something like that. All right, so this is regions and availability zones. Now, let's go back to our diagram. Right, so there are some other kinds of dots you can see. For example, this is the dot here in Taiwan. So that means they have announced. So Azure has announced that there will be an upcoming region here. There'll be an upcoming region in Poland. So there are announcements like that, right? There are also some very specific regions created for specific use cases, right? So those are called Azure sovereign regions. Let's see if we have images. And it's not here. So maybe I'll just explain it. So sovereign regions are regions which are created for very specific use cases, and they are run independently. They are not available for general customers, right? So for example, there is a Azure sovereign region of Azure government, which is for US government. There's an Azure sovereign region for China, which is not managed by China, but it is available. It's not, I cannot use that because it's just for people from China. And maybe a couple of more. The location for such regions are not disclosed for security and compliance reasons by Azure. Okay. All right. Now let me log into my Azure account. and let's see what is there. So Azure portal, if I look for Azure portal, this is the portal, this is a GUI to access my Azure account. I already have an account, but if you want, you can also create a free account. If you want to explore Azure services, when you create a free account, you get many services free for 12 months. For example, you can have like, create free virtual machines uh, for at most 750 hours. Why did it do that? Yeah, so you can use virtual machines, you can create databases, storage, and all things. So these you can continue to use for free. Also, to explore all the paid services, you will get $200 credit, right? So I just created, my free dollars are expired, and I think my 1 year also is expired to use these services for free. But yeah, if you create an account, you will get all these for free. Okay. If you exceed your usage beyond these free limitations, then you will be charged. So please bear in mind that. For first, for first $200 of charges will be borne by Azure. Okay, so you can create a free account, yeah, or you can sign in. So if you have an account, just sign in. I'm going to sign in now. Just give me a second. I'm going to pause my screen and sign in. All right, so I'm signed in now. Hopefully you can see my screen. And you can see here, as soon as I sign in, it says, hey, these are the services that you can create and use from Azure. So I can, create virtual machines, which is like the basic and most used service. I can create application services to deploy my application. I can create storage accounts, SQL databases, things like that. Maybe in the future webinars, we will see about all these services individually. Today, we talk about virtual machines. Okay, so let's create a virtual machine. So just give me a second. Somebody's calling me. Hello. Not required. Yeah, all right. So I can create a virtual machine now, right? So I click on virtual machine, and this is the landing page for virtual machines for me, right? I don't have any virtual machines running, so let's create one. I click on this create, and I get some options. So I can create a virtual machine, or I can create a virtual machine with predefined configurations. I can create a virtual machine using Azure Arc in other cloud environments like in AWS or things like that. So these are some advanced things. So let's not go into there. I'm going to create a basic Azure virtual machine. Okay. Now here you will see a couple of things. So first thing is the subscription, right? How are you going to pay for it? So when you create an account and you get free things, you will see a free subscription, but I don't have free subscription anymore. So I have to use pay as you go. Yeah. And then there is something called as resource group. So every resource that you create in Azure, like your virtual machine or database or whatever, it has to be created in a group, right? So that means you can say, hey, for my team, these are the resources. So I have 5 virtual machines, 5 databases, this network, IP addresses, and things like that. So all those become part of a group. So you have to create resources in a group. You cannot have freely floating resources. So the resources have to be part of the group. Yeah. So as of now, you see there are no groups here. So let's create a resource group first. So on search bar, I can look for services. Okay. So I said resource groups. So you see here, there is a result called resource group. I open it. And this is when I can create resource groups. I don't know how to resource groups. Okay. So I can, let's create a resource group. Yeah? I'm going to call this resource group, let's say SkillUpRight. Just like that, SkillUpRight. Okay, this is my resource group. And then the region where this resource group should be created. Okay, so I'll go with the default, which is East US, or if I think, it's better for me to have it closer to me, then I can find something in India, right? So Asia Pacific, India, West India. So I can choose that as well. But let's go with the default here right now. Then I can give it some tags so that I can identify it. But I'm going to skip that and I'll just say review and create. So when I click on review and create, it's going to validate the data that I have provided. And then finally gives me an option to create. And so a resource group is created, which is called SUR. Okay, let's go back to our virtual machines. And let's click on create. So here's a subscription, and now you will see a resource group, which is SUR. And now I can give a name for my virtual machine. I can say, well, demo 1. Now, in which region I want to create a virtual machine, I can choose that. If I want this virtual machine to be near to me, I can choose appropriate regions. Right? It's all up to the use case. For demonstration purpose, we can go with default. Then comes availability options. Right? So there are a couple of things, couple of options. So if I choose the default option, which is no infrastructure redundancy required, what does that mean? That means this virtual machine will be created in one of the Azure regions in one of its availability zone, and that's it. If that availability zone goes down or faces some power issues or whatever, then your machine will be impacted. Okay, let's go by this for now. We'll come back to the advanced options later. Then, what kind of security I want? I can take trusted launch virtual machines. So I can have some physical security like TPM chip and all that, or I can just go with basic level. Right. So I'll just say standard security type because I'm not worried about security. Then which image I want to use. So what is an image? Image is the operating system that you want to use on your virtual machine, plus all the configurations done by Azure so that it is compatible with Azure environment. So, it's not just a operating system, it's operating system plus Azure specific configurations. In AWS environments, these are called AMIs, Azure Machine Image, right? So here it is that. So you can choose various operating systems. So Ubuntu 20.04, 22.04, SUSE, Red Hat. Then there will be Windows Server as well. I'm not sure if they have Mac, but I think AWS has Mac. I'm not sure here if they have Mac OS. They don't have Mac OS. Okay, yeah. So you can go for Windows, you can go for Linux. Let's go with the Linux, the default option. Let's go with the standard security. VM architecture, do you want x64 or AMD? So Intel or AMD? I'll just go with the default here. Azure Spot discount, we are not going to talk about it, so I'm just going to keep it away. Now, which configuration to use? Right, so what should be the size of your virtual machine? How many CPUs? How many how much RAM you want in your machine, and there is estimated cost for that as well. So if you keep your machine running for um, all the time for an entire month, 30 days, you will incur cost of around 5,500 Indian rupees, right? It is charged hourly. So if you just run this machine for 1 hour and then delete it, then you won't be charged anything, or you will be charged for 1 hour, I should say. But yeah, if you, this is an estimation or indicative cost so that you can make decision what do you want, right? So 2 CPU, 8 GB memory is this much. You can, of course, have a reduced size also. So if I click on all sizes, I can see a lot of different sizes here. So there is DS1V2, which has only one CPU and 3.5 GB RAM. There is B1LS, which is one CPU and half a GB of RAM. Yeah, it would be like the cheapest one, I guess. Yeah, maybe this will be too small. So I'll just at least take 1 GB of RAM. So I select this and I click on select. And here you will see after a few seconds, now it says, okay, if this is a machine and if you keep on running it for 1 month continuously, you will spend around 600 Indian rupees, right? So this is okay. Then how do you want to log in to this account? I can either log into this machine. I can either log in using SSH public key or a username password. Okay, so I can give a username and a password. Generally, SSH public key is preferred, but if you choose, if you want, you can also choose username password. Okay, to log into that machine. I'm going to use SSH public key. Right? So now, what is a username? You can choose which username you want to use. So Azure user is the default, that's fine. Public key resource, so which public key we want to use. If I had created already some key, I would have used that, but I have not. So let me create a new key pair. Okay, key pair name will be, let's say, I'll just give it this name. And then there are some rules which I can specify on what kind of networking or what kind of communication is accessible for this virtual machine. So it's like a firewall on a virtual machine. Yeah. So here by default, Azure is configured to suggest you that only port 22 should be open for the internet. Right. So from here, if I want to connect to this machine, I should be able to access to this machine. But if I want to access a web application or something else, not possible. Right. So then I can choose which machines or which ports I want to expose. I can expose, let's say, port 80 if I want to setting up a web application. So port 80 is the default port. For port 443 is the default for HTTPS. So I can enable that as well. Let's do that. And port 22. You can change this later. You can add more ports to allow more traffic, or you can open everything up in the network section here in the networking section. So we will see that here. Now, next, this is done. Let's click on next. And here is how much storage we want in our CPU, in our virtual machine. So it says by default 30 GB will be added. I can actually try to reduce this. Looks like I can't. So 30 GB is fine. I'll go with the 30 GB storage. Disk type is standard SSD or standard HDD, just to keep the cost a bit lower. And there are various disk types. There is SSD, which is for normal, web applications and things like that. There is HDD if you just want to have a low cost hard disk in your system. And then there is premium SSD, right? So which is very fast IOPS. There is also replication of data, which I'm not going to get into right now. Okay, so I say standard HDD. delete with the VM. So if the VM is deleted, this storage will also be deleted. Yeah. Key management is platform management. Yeah, that's fine. Then click on networking. Here you can specify, many networking related things. It's a different codes altogether about networking. But yeah, you can see that. Okay. That's it. I think I'm going to just review and create. I'm not going to do anything else unless in the review Azure tells me to do something. So here you see the pricing. I will be paying around 8, around 0.8 Indian rupees per hour for this virtual machine. Imagine that you wanted a virtual machine right now and Azure was not there. You would have very limited options. At the end, you will just go and buy a laptop, right? This is just pay this much amount for some time of use. And yeah, this is all, create. Generate a new key pair, yes, because I want to connect to this machine. So it has downloaded the key pair for me. Let's give it some time. And you see my virtual machine deployment is in progress. Okay, it's still going on. If I refresh, maybe it is done. I will get notifications properly as soon as some activity is completed. It is done. So if I go, let's see, I close the notifications. And if I go to home, now I can see my resources here. Right. So there is a resource group that I have created, and there is a demo one virtual machine I have created. So let's go to demo one machine. And I see that this machine is created. It is located in East US. The subscription is pay as you go. So that means I'm being charged for it. This is the size. This is the public IP address. So I can connect to this machine via this public IP address. Okay. So let's try to connect it. There is also an option called connect here. So if you click on it, you can see that if you want to connect via SSH, you can connect like this. Okay. And I can just connect like this. So I'm going to take this command and open my terminal. Hopefully you can see my screen. So just give me a second. All right, so let's copy this and let's paste it here. And I have already downloaded the key. Yeah. So I will connect using SSH, right? Press enter. Yes. And I'm there, right? I connected to my Azure system. It's called Demo 1. Let's become root and let's install a simple web application. So I'm installing HTTPD or Apache Web Server. Let's wait for it to finish installing. Done. So now if I take this IP address of this machine, which is this one, and just go to my browser and browse to this machine, I see web server. Yeah, pretty easy. Now I have set up a web application. I can modify it. I can go to just save it. And if I see here, hello from Azure. So I can just set up a web application quickly by creating a virtual machine, installing a service, and having this file there. That's it, quickly. I don't need to invest any big amount in any infrastructure, in setting up anything specific. I just can get it done. Okay. Now, this is how you can get your application up and running, right? Now, I mentioned about availability, right? And scaling up. So when you run your applications in production environment, you want to ensure that your servers are highly available. So in this virtual machine configuration, there is also something called as availability and scaling. Right now, we have not chosen any availability options, right? So there are two availability and two availability options and one scalability option in Azure, right? So what does that mean? What is scalability? What is scalability? Scalability is if your application can scale according to demand, right? So let's say you have some customer and they want to access your web application and you are running it on a virtual machine. If the customer become like, let's say 10,000 times, so there are 10,000 customers now, this virtual machine alone will not be able to satisfy the uh, the demand from the customers because it will not have enough resources. So how would you handle this? So either you will scale this machine up. That means you will add more CPU, more RAM, more storage, whatever is required. But there's a physical limitation on how much you can expand. Yeah, how much you can scale up. So what you do is you can maybe add more virtual machines, and put one load balancer in front, which will redirect the load to these virtual machines. Right? So this is called scaling. Scaling out, actually. If you increase the resources of a virtual machine, it's called scaling out. So this is called scaling out. So you can expand or add more resources to your application just by scaling out. Right? Now you can do this automatically as well. You can do this automatically as well. And that's called scale sets in Azure. You can say, hey, I want to set up a scale set, and there should be minimum of 2 virtual machines in the scale set. But if there is a lot of load coming in on these virtual machines, then increase virtual machines one by one up to a maximum of, let's say, 10 virtual machines. So depending on load or depending on other criteria like a specific time of the day, you can say, hey, automatically Azure is going to add more virtual machines. And when that criteria is not valid anymore, automatically the machines will be removed and it will be scaled down to whatever is required. Okay, so that's called scale sets. Okay, so let me delete this machine because I don't want to pay for it. I'm not using it anymore. So delete this machine. Yes, done. It's going to delete it. Now let's look for scale sets. So virtual machine scale sets. I can create a scale set which is going to enable Azure to create virtual machines or more virtual machines so that it can take the load or expand itself. So these are mostly the same options. Virtual machine scale set name, let's say my scale set, and is the region availability zone. So all right, so in this region, which availability zones I want to use. So I can use more than one availability zone. So always use more than one availability zones. And then you have to see orchestration mode. So you want to have identical or multiple virtual machine types. What you want to have that, or you want to have same virtual machine configurations across all the instances. And then you can specify which operating system, which architecture. This is a standard configuration for a virtual machine. And then just say create. Right? There's another extra option called scaling here. So here you can specify what should be the initial number of virtual machines in the scale set and when should it scale. So either it should be scaled manually. So when a developer realizes, hey, I want to increase the scale of this application, then they can use the manual option, or you can say custom, which is automatic. And you can say whenever the CPU percentage is more than 75% utilized, scale up, scale out, right? Scaling back in is if the CPU goes beyond. So you can specify all these things. Yeah. So this is called scale set. I'm not going to create the scale set. I just wanted to tell you about it. Then there is something called as availability set. This is different from availability zone. Availability zones are nothing but individual data centers in a region. Availability set talks about how your virtual machines are created or are made available to you. So in a data center, wherever Azure is creating the servers, there are power supplies, right? There are power supplies which are powering the servers. These are the huge, big physical servers. And in these servers, your virtual machines will be created. Right? So if you say, I want to have 10 servers, maybe 5 are created here, 5 are created here. Now, there is a chance that maybe this power supply goes away or goes off, no power here. This entire server will come down. So you will end up only living with your 5 VMs. At least your application will be up, but with reduced capability. So that is fine. So You want to ensure that when you are deploying your virtual machines, you choose a availability set so that it is spread across fault domains. So fault domains is based on power, right? So this is one power domain, this is one domain, this is one domain of power. This one power source controls these servers. Maybe there are more than one servers also. So your virtual machines should be distributed across these domains. So when creating a virtual machine, you can choose if you want to create a, let's create a virtual machine. Let me just show you quickly. Okay, something. And availability options, yeah. So you can see here, there is availability set. You can also say scale sets, availability sets. Yeah. So availability set is distribute your VMs across multiple fault domains. So if I choose availability set, you can I can define a set, for example, like this here. So I can say how many fault domains I want to spread this across. Right. So it looks like there are 3 fault domains here. And then I can also say something called as update domains. Right. So when I say 3 fault domains, that means if I create 10 servers here, they will be distributed on as evenly as possible across these 3 fault domains. So even if one fault domain is down, which has, for example, let's say 3 virtual machines, rest 2 uh, will be available. Then there is also update domains. You can distribute your virtual machines or set of virtual machines into different update domains. What update domain does is, if there is a software update, your operating system update. So Azure manages operating system updates. It will automatically install OS updates for you, or maybe patches or BIOS patches, whatever. So what it's going to do is it's going to again divide the virtual machines into domains, and virtual machines in one update domain will be patched together. So if there are, let's say, 5 update domains and 10 virtual machines, then there are 2 virtual machines in each update domain. So whenever software update arrives, Azure is going to take one update domain down, update the machines there, bring those up, and then take the other domain down. So at one point of time, only 2 machines will be down. So you can distribute your updates across your machines without impacting your application and its availability. Okay. Questions? Okay, so that's all from me. So we have talked about skill sets, availability sets, in which we have fault domain and update domain. So that's how you can deploy your applications and maybe use them for small amount of time for doing some development work, or deploying web applications and things like that. We have 4 minutes. I can take up some questions. How automatic scaling works. As I showed you, based on threshold values of CPU utilization or things like that, it can scale up or scale down. How 3 fault domains will map to 8 update domain. There is no relationship between fault domains and update domains. You can choose just 2 fault domains and maybe 2 update domains. So it's all configurable. How to add RAM only rather VM, please? I don't understand this question, but you can change the size of the virtual machine to scale it up to make it a bit more powerful. How can we move files from Linux local folder to Unix VM? You can use SCP if you are using SSH. How to add RAM? That's I answered. How we can automate adding specific device to VM, not another instance of VM. Adding specific device to VM, I mean, automation you can do via writing your code via Azure CLI. There is no other automation available, I guess. We can select different regions for resource group and VM. Yes. So one resource group is created in one region, but it does not mean that the resources that it will contain should also be in that region. So it can have resources from other regions as well. Can we schedule power on off a VM? You can write code for that. We have deployed one VM in one availability set. Can we move that VM to availability zone? So VM will be created in an availability zone, one of the availability zone. But you can say that, all right, you want to make it redundant, so you can enable the redundancy, yes. How we can create networking like dev prod, QA prod. So that is called virtual private cloud, VPCs, or private network. So we will talk about it some other time. In case we have more VMs and we need to add a load balancer, how do we add load balancer? You have load balancer service as well. So you can see load balancers and you can create it. You can put load balancer in front of a scale set. Can we log into VM like regular VM for Windows operating system? So you mean the remote desktop? If you have Windows version, Windows operating system, then you can use remote desktop as well. If you have Windows virtual machines. Azure does not create load balancers by default on scale sets, but you can create load balancers. If once we create a scale policy for my VM, can we have an option to rechange the? Yes, you can change the scaling policies. Yes. Do additional fault and update domains add to cost? No, domains don't add to cost. Only your virtual machines will add to cost. Difference between availability zone and DR site, the DR also has availability zones. So DR site is same as availability zone. Azure doesn't call them DR site. Is it possible to add extra requirement like storage rather than creating a new VMs? So you are saying that you want to scale up your storage rather than scaling up your VM. That seems a bit challenging. You can write code for it, but Azure by itself does not provide you scaling up your storage. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for your attention for this time. Okay, there's a question. Availability set handle drive failure or server failure. If there is a drive or server failure, then a replacement machine will be created for you by Azure. Okay. Thanks everyone. Thank you for your time. And I will see you in the next session. Hopefully this 1 hour was beneficial for you guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day and enjoy the weekend. Bye.